Hello everyone and welcome to another video. This one is going to be interesting because I want to do a weekly recap because of how much stuff has happened throughout this week in terms of in-game, in the Overwatch League, in team's perspective. But also, I'm running out of time to finish a lot of these team previews. So, Vancouver Titans and Vegas Eternal are the only ones left in the West that I haven't done, and I was kind of waiting for these guys to announce their sixth players and, sort of round out their rosters, but they never did it, so their consequences of that are I'm now bundling you into a weekly recap. I also need to do a lot of APAC. I haven't talked about any of the APAC teams, so after this video, the next one will be an APAC full team recaps for all of those teams that are existing in the Eastern region. And then the last video that will be coming out before the season starts will be my Overwatch League season 2023 preseason power rankings, because there have been some going around. Obviously, Plat Chat has been a little off the goop with some of their takes. So I feel like I need to come out and defend myself and sort of put those guys a little bit of a humble pie they need to get. So let's just get this going because this should be a pretty big video because there has been a lot of things happening. So I'm going to start with the team previews, and I want to talk about the Vancouver Titans first because they are sort of getting a rough end of the draw here because they are going to be a great team this year. I think they are going to be very solid. I don't expect them to be in that top tier in the West because of, how stacked the top end of the West is, but they actually have a sneaky good team. And let's talk about them because in the front line, which, the DPS line, something that we're very excited about for this year, is Aspire has been the only player retained from the Vancouver Titans going into this year, but he is being paired with Sugarfree, who is a young prodigy who's been in contenders and been around for a really long time. He actually retired last year from competitive Overwatch play. Well, take a break is probably a better way to say it. And now that he's finally of age, he's going alongside Aspire. And if you've watched any of the Team USA Overwatch World Cup trials, he looks very solid, especially on those traces and those flex DPS heroes. So Aspire, who is like one of the best Western players that exists right now, paired with this up-and-coming star in Sugarfree, this DPS lineup has such a deep hero pool that they could be considered one of the better, DPS lineups in the West, even considering how many great DPS lineups we have out there. So massive upsides for the Vancouver Titans. And now you pair them with the Boston Uprising, or what was left of last year's Boston Uprising, but the good pieces of that. We have Punk as the solo tank right now, which has some concerns for a lot of people. He's a great off tank. We know he has a great Diva, Sigma, all those kind of characters he's known for. Last year, we did see him play some main tanks, a little bit of Winston when he was required to. He played some Doomfist. Punk is solid, and he has never disappointed anyone ever on the teams. He has a laundry list of tanks that have tried to bench him over the last few years, but Punk always comes out on top. And he's finally being trusted on this Vancouver Titans roster to be that solo tank, at least for right now. As you can see on the screen, we don't have 6 players yet, and every team is required to have 6 players by season start, but we haven't heard anything just yet. So maybe they'll add a second tank to round this tank line out, would make us a lot more comfortable with this team. But overall, I'm okay with Punk. Australian brethren, we stand strong. And the backline is Faith and Crimzo, another 2 pieces coming from the Boston Uprising. Crimzo is one of the better Western Flex supports, in my opinion. Very solid player. He's not the crazy, flashy, flanking player that we know and love from some of these other guys, but every time he's in, he makes his impact felt, especially on that Ana and the Zenyatta. He's just a solid player all around, and you should keep your eye on him. And he's going to be playing with Faith, who's a main support, which, honestly, I don't have amazing things to say about Faith. He's just solid. He's not going to win you games. He's not going to lose you games right now. And the only concern I really have for this backline is if we end up in a double flex support meta, is Faith going to be able to sort of pick up those reins and play, like an Ana or a Baptiste or anything that is going to be required from the flex role? I'm not sure if Faith and Crimzo are going to be able to hang with how many great double flex support, lineups we have, especially in the West. So for me, this is a good team. I want to see them add a 6th player. I think that DPS line is fine. It's either a main tank or another flex support. I honestly would go for main tank just to be safe, but as I said, Punk's never disappointed us in the past. For coaching, they have Baroy as the general manager and Askoft as the head coach. I wouldn't be surprised if these two work together to be the two coaches, but they're definitely running on the leaner side for the Vancouver Titans. And I'm not even sure what the rumors really are of if they're going to be picking up a sixth player. There's rumors that the Vancouver Titans and a lot of other teams will be playing a coach as their sixth player. There were rumors that they were going to stop teams from doing that, but teams are already doing that. So it's up in the air, and I don't know what to expect. I was hoping they would have announced this by the time that we got to this point, but unfortunately, no. So that's the Vancouver Titans. I think this will be like a gatekeeper team in the West. Like they're going to be below your like Houston Outlaws, your Boston or maybe Boston Uprisings, and those kind of teams. But I think they'll be above the rest of. I think they'll be above Washington Justice. I think they'll be above New York Excelsior, London Spitfire. I actually have a lot of expectation for this team to be sneaky good and actually get a lot of wins. But I don't see them ever being able to sort of go past that point and start consistently breaking into the top 5 of the West. So we're also going to talk about the Vegas Eternal. So the other team preview that we need to do in the West. Vegas is an interesting choice. Obviously rebranding from Paris Eternal to Vegas Eternal this year, but they didn't decide to change their roster. And that left a lot of people scratching their heads, a little bit of thunking. But we were willing to give them the benefit of the doubt of, they hired a new coach in Empress as their head coach, the only coach that they have right now, which is concerning in its own right to only have one coach. But Empress has sort of acquired this contenders team that was sort of filled in last year to just sort of like keep the lights on, keep the team running, and they just didn't play well. Honestly, just say it how it is. Paris Eternal got bopped in the back half of the season. It's not surprising with how little time they had to gel and sort of get everything together. But then sticking with a bunch of these players was a choice, right? Dove Mouthful had worries because Dove is the hit scan player plus also the best tracer player on their team. That's always a problem because usually there's a hit scan tracer meta in the time, and we saw Mouthful play the tracer in the Pro-Am and it just doesn't look very good. And for those reasons, he was defaulting to Genji a lot, but Genji's just not very good, so he was kind of getting farmed. So a lot of concerns about this DPS lineup right now. They have a lot to prove. At the end of the day, everyone's coming in with pretty much no expectations for this team because, especially after the Pro-Am sort of cemented people's opinions of them, that like this is essentially a contenders team that is hiding in as an Overwatch League team. Luke Mina, Rack Attack, we've talked nice things about them and how their backline's solid, but we haven't seen that because of the roster around them. And then Vulcan comes in, finally getting an opportunity to be the only tank on an Overwatch League roster and actually getting some game time. But Vulcan's, at the end of the day, is like an off tank, and the bits and pieces that we saw from Winston is a little bit sussy. And it feels like one of those issues that maybe these guys individually, if they were surrounded by a better team, could perform in the league. But with so many what feels like average players combined into one team, it just feels like they're never able to really get off the ground. There is rumors that Rhino is going to be coming in to fill in the main tank spots. Rhino's a great young tank player, can play the Wrecking Ball, the Winston, would make me a lot more comfortable with this roster because at least the tank role, I think with Vulcan and Rhino, that's competitive. I think at, sort of still the bottom end of the Overwatch League, but it would be competitive, and I think they would have a lot more flexibility in their roster. But I would love to see Rhino get signed, but also another DPS player, someone who is like a tracer specialist, maybe can play like a little bit of something else, maybe top tier, like Echo, maybe a little bit of hit scan. That would make me more comfortable, but I don't expect Vegas to have the budget to be able to sort of go up to a 7-player roster right now. So it feels like they've cornered themselves a little bit with, signing, Dove, Mouthful, Luke Mina, and Rack Attack again. But I don't really have anything else to say about this. Excited to see what Empress can do with this team. If Empress can accomplish big things, then all the power to them. But that's the Vegas Eternal. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this team. Everyone has them pretty much 19th in the power rankings because the 20th team doesn't even exist. So they have a lot to prove, especially seeing as, people putting the LA Valiant, literally a random contenders team that was slapdash together, that has paintbrushes, the GM, head coach, assistant coach, scrim coordinator, social media manager, and all that type of stuff bundled into one. people still believe in the Valiant over them, which is disrespectful, but that's what Vegas Eternal needs to prove to other people, that they are going to be able to just be better than that, right? So that's the two team previews. Vegas Eternal, a lot to work with. But I want to talk about some of the big things that have happened throughout the last week, because there's been a lot of changes, especially to Lifeweaver as a hero. As we go into the Overwatch League next weekend, Lifeweaver will be available in the pool. And when Lifeweaver was first released, oh god, I didn't have donations
I'm
off.
thinking of running a Winston Echo Sojourn Anna Kiriko for hybrid for my team. Thoughts on maybe better substitutions?
Good thinking, Vife. Thank you for the $5. Unfortunately, can't talk about that right now. We got to talk about Lifeweaver. I will respond to you after this video, but Lifeweaver is a new hero coming in, and when Lifeweaver was first released, everyone got their hands on him. He felt clunky, didn't feel very good. His numbers were low. He has some good upsides with the pull of the Lifeweaver grip, and the pedal can have a lot of like unique value, but it wasn't enough to make Lifeweaver a strong hero overall. So what they did is they changed his keybinds to make it so that it should feel less clunky. His healing and his gun is now on one thing, and that you use primary fire and alternate fire on. And Alec Dawson just today actually came out with some updates to how Lifeweaver will be played. His ammo is going up from 20, up to 20 from 12. He is no longer slowing during setting up the heal, which is a big change. His spread has been tightened on his damage. His Tree of Life got a buff to the healing and the health of the tree, and they actually removed his Parting Gift passive, which sort of dropped a health pack after he died. This is a step in the right direction, in my opinion, and here are the changes if you guys want them right here. Thank you very much, money. But the thing for... God, I'm just getting donations all over the place now. The thing about Lifeweaver that makes him quite difficult is the hitbox size of the character is just way too big, and because he doesn't have self-sustainability of his dash healing is on a pretty long cooldown for what it is, and it doesn't heal you that much, he's so susceptible to death, especially at the top end. No matter how much they really buff his healing, his damage, and all that type of stuff, as long as his hitbox stays this big, I don't expect him to be played in the Overwatch League at this point. But we'll see if the Overwatch League teams disagree with me, but from what we've seen on social media so far, they all pretty much agree. I don't expect to see Lifeweaver in the opening weekend of Overwatch League, but at least Blizzard is starting to make the right changes to be able to sort of change that. And let's remember, they can hotfix numbers quite easily. I think changing the size of a hitbox of a character is a lot more difficult. So this might be something that comes in a more major patch in the future, rather than just like number changes that can be quite easily hotfixed into the game. So I don't expect to see a hitbox change anytime soon, but I think that is the primary problem with the character right now. So other news, we have talent announcements for the Overwatch League. Yay! So this is the official talent for the regular season and the playoffs and everything you should expect to see throughout the year. There are some exciting things to be seen, especially for me as well, because I am moving away from the desk and moving into a casting position. I will be casting this year alongside Jaws, so that should be a lot of fun. We'll be primarily doing North American matches, but we'll be doing some sprinkling of APAC as well from time to time if you guys want to see us after dark. But Jake is actually replacing me on the desk, so there was rumors that Jake was going to go to talent, and I'm excited to see him joining our talent team because very smart guy, very insightful, very fun to have around. So what Jake is going to do on the desk, what the desk is going to look like this year is going to be exciting to see, especially with some changes in sort of the production and the back end that I'm not sure if you guys are aware of. There are a lot of new producers. There's a lot of new cooks in the kitchen. So I expect it to be very different, and you should be excited for the desk and everything that's going to be coming this year. As you can see, all these other great cast of pairs that are coming back this year as well. So hell yeah, that's going to be fun. Keep an eye on for the talent. So keeping things moving along, make sure this recap doesn't go for too long. We had some big news coming out from the Overwatch League. The Chengdu Hunters are not going to be competing in the spring stage. I don't know why they're only saying the spring stage. I don't expect them to come in throughout the rest of the year or anything to change in the back half, but never say never, I guess. But the Chengdu Hunters this year will not be competing, at least in the short term. They have not fielded a roster. It's unfortunate, but the reality of the situation is that the Chengdu Hunters, their parent company, Huya, is just not doing well. It's down like 80%. Their stock price has dropped like 80% in the last few years. They don't have, the ability to support this team, and that's sort of why, that almost bankruptcy has sort of made the Chengdu Hunters fold, which sucks for the league, obviously, as a whole. We're only going to have 19 teams. They've said here that only 6 Overwatch League teams will compete in the Eastern region, which is like barely any. And that really sucks for everyone involved. But hopefully this doesn't lead to bigger changes from more teams and other teams don't start following soon. But yeah, the Chengdu zone will be remembered. Fortunately, the best pieces of Chengdu Hunters have been merged into the Hangzhou Spark, and the Spark look to be a super team this year. But still sad to see any Overwatch League team with so much history go under. They were the silly season team that always kept us on our toes. Talking about silly season. I told you, chat. The Boston Uprising have just been off the goop. And I raised a lot of concerns in the last few weeks, and I actually got a lot of hate for it, especially, through the Pro-Am when Boston started winning matches of like, Boston Uprising aren't going to be just this incredibly strong roster that we were expecting them. I said that they're going to be good. They're going to be in that top 7 in the West. But I don't think they were going to be able to compete with your San Francisco Sharks just because they're very old players. If this roster was put together in 2021, they'd probably be the best team in the league. But a lot of these players have sort of lost a step a little bit. They're not as strong. They're not as passionate. They don't have that dog in them. And I was concerned that that was going to hurt them in the long run, especially when you have players like Striker, Birdring, and Decay who have had a history of sort of stepping away from the game. There have been rumors coming out that the Boston Uprising have been tilting in scrims, leaving scrims, all that type of stuff. It was just rumors, these last couple of days, but you can only buy into it so much. But Boston Uprising made the mistake of tweeting about it, saying, Boston Uprising, it was lies that the Uprising is falling apart. The truth, our team vibes are going to the moon. This got rebutted by a bunch of the Overwatch League players. We have Dante from the LA Gladiators that finished a scrim 40 minutes early, which usually means you're tilting out of a scrim, which is very disrespectful to do. To add context of like scrimming, doesn't matter how bad your scrims are going, doesn't matter what's going on, you should always play out scrims, you should always finish scrims because that's practice time. This is work. You do what you need to do. Even if it's going terribly for you, you can't just stop playing. It doesn't work at this level. We also had Sir Marjev from Toronto Defiance saying you cancelled scrims on us. We then had, there was a bunch of other ones from Overwatch League players. I don't know where they are. I think maybe it was some quote retweets, but we also got one coming out from Gator from the Atlanta Reign. Also said that they'll be, taking big breaks. There's rumors across the board that the Boston Uprising are boomed in scrims right now. So we need to keep an eye on that because we know how volatile this team could be with some of the players they have on them. It's only preseason and they're already starting to struggle, at least apparently so. I'm really just bringing it up to be a little bit smug and say, I told you so a little bit. So Reddit, get off my back. But, this is still a great team. I think they'll still be solid, but will they be able to play at the top end? It seems unlikely at this point. But that's everything. That's the weekly recap. I know I haven't done these in a while, but that's because we sort of had slow news days, but there was so much that happened, and I need to get these things sorted before the season actually begins, which happens in a week. The long off season is finally over. The regular season is about to start kicking off. So make sure to subscribe to this channel if you guys want to watch some more VOD reviews, all that type of stuff. Actually fun, interesting fact as well, because I will be casting, but not casting every single day. If you guys want to watch, I will be co-streaming some matches on my Twitch when I am not casting that day. So make sure to go to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Custa. Check that one out if you guys want to see me doing some co-streams, talking about the games live. Make sure to like the video. Let me know what you guys think about all this news. The Chengdu Hunters, the Vancouver Titans, the Vegas Eternal, anything. Let me know what you guys think below. I love you all very much, and I will see you guys next time.